It's Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. I'm OG Nerd, and tonight I need to talk about hunger. Real hunger in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Brooke Rollins, the United States Secretary of Agriculture, said something this year that has been living rent-free in my head ever since I heard it. She said, quote, "The American dream is not about being on a food stamp program." I've been thinking about who she was talking to when she said that, because I don't think she was talking to Maria, the woman in the scrubs with her name stitched over her heart, standing in the food pantry line in Arizona before her shift starts, because she makes just over the income limit to qualify for benefits she desperately needs. I don't think she was talking to the journalist who woke up one morning and found out her approved SNAP benefits weren't coming. Benefits she qualified for, had been approved for, gone because the government decided to hold them. I don't think Secretary Rollins was talking to any of the 4 million Americans who have lost their food assistance in the last year. I think she was talking to people who have never had to choose between groceries and rent. And I think that is exactly the problem. Let me tell you what the one big bullshit bill actually did to SNAP. Because the name of the bill is doing a lot of work to obscure what is actually inside it. It cut $187 billion from food assistance over 10 years, the largest cut in the program's 60-year history. It expanded work requirements to veterans, homeless individuals, former foster youth, parents of teenagers, and adults between 55 and 64. It shifted costs onto states, meaning states that can't make up the difference will either cut their programs or exit SNAP entirely. It froze future benefit increases. It removed internet costs from the benefits calculations, meaning 13 million households will get an average of $10 less per month, even though internet access is now essential for applying for jobs, attending school, and functioning in modern society. And it stripped refugees and asylum seekers of eligibility entirely. People who fled violence and persecution, people who came here legally, people the United States said, "Come in, you're welcome here, and then you're on your own for food." This administration says this is about reducing fraud. So let's look at the fraud numbers. Out of 42 million SNAP participants, 42,476 people were disqualified for fraud in the most recent year of data. That's less than 1%. 1%. Experts at Cornell, Harvard, and the University of Connecticut have all said the same thing. There is no evidence that fraud is driving the drop in participation. What is driving the drop is paperwork, bureaucracy, impossible documentation requirements being processed by understaffed state agencies, eligible people submitting everything on time and being automatically removed anyway because the state didn't process their application within the 30-day window, and then having to start the entire process over again from scratch. In Arizona, 53% of SNAP recipients are gone, more than half. Not because more than half of Arizona's food insecure population suddenly found high-paying jobs, because the system was made deliberately harder to navigate. And when a system is deliberately made harder to navigate, the people who fall through the cracks are always the people who can least afford to. I want to say something directly about who this bill actually helped. The One Big Beautiful Bill cut assistance for the poorest Americans. It also, in the same legislation at the same moment, handed hundreds of billions of dollars in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans and largest corporations. The money taken from Maria's food budget did not disappear. It was redistributed upward to people who will never stand in a food pantry line. That's not a budget decision. That's not fiscal responsibility. That's a moral choice made by people with full refrigerators about whose hunger matters and whose doesn't. From my perspective, I believe something very simple. A government that allows its people to go hungry while simultaneously cutting taxes for billionaires has its priorities exactly backwards. SNAP is not a handout, it's a public investment. Every dollar spent on SNAP generates $1.50 in economic activity. It supports grocery stores and local businesses and the communities they serve. It keeps children healthy enough to learn. It keeps older workers healthy enough to keep working. And it keeps families stable enough to keep functioning. Cutting SNAP does not save money. It shifts costs to emergency rooms, to food banks, to homeless shelters, to every downstream consequence of hunger that this society will eventually have to pay for one way or another. California food banks are serving more people than they did during the COVID pandemic. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York is warning of a remarkable increase in food insecurity. Food prices are going up. Benefits are going down, and 4 million people are navigating that impossible math without any help at all. Secretary Rollins says the American dream is not being on food stamps. I say the American dream should include never having to choose between eating and paying rent in the wealthiest nation on earth. I say the American dream should include a government that sees its most vulnerable people and responds with humanity, not paperwork. I say the American dream belongs to Maria in her scrubs just as much as it belongs to anyone in a cabinet meeting. 4 million people lost their food benefits this year. That number is going to grow, and every single one of those people has a name stitched above their heart or not. I'm OG Nerd, and this is my take. Stay informed, stay sharp, and if you know someone who's lost their SNAP benefits, share this, because their story deserves to be told. Join the conversation on OG Nerd After Dark, 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on TikTok, live. I'll see you there.